has been shaped by North Philadelphia, as much as it doesn't want to admit it. And these students who walk around, they are likewise shaped by North Philadelphia. Own it. Own it. And then let's be in conversation. Conversation costs us nothing. Dialogue is free. All we have to do is be willing to sit down and to listen respectfully and to speak. So students, keep it up. If we're talking about bringing some intellectual wisdom into North Philadelphia, Temple University can provide that. If we strengthen the African American Studies Department so that there's a real connection between the streets of North Philadelphia and this university, the African American Studies Department is the place where that's going to happen. And frankly, between you and I, how it is presently configured, I'm not so sure that it will be that place. But we know that Dr. Monteiro brings an energy, an intellect, a wisdom, a curiosity, and a way of sharing hard truths to people so that we may be engaged and to know more. Tony Monteiro, Dr. Monteiro needs to come back to Temple. He needs to come back to Temple. We're talking about making an impression. If Temple wants to make an impression in North Philadelphia, Dr. Monteiro can help lead that charge. If Temple really wants to change people's lives, not just the students who gather, but all of these people who are around, Dr. Monteiro can help to make that happen. Keep up the fight. Keep up the fight, because the battle's not over till we say it's over. And I don't give up easy. Now, I'm not sure how many of you do, right? But you know, our ancestors didn't. And those are the shoulders we stand upon. We would not be here today unless someone was willing to keep up the fight. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Throughout this whole entire ordeal, he's displayed with nothing but professionalism and resiliency. Resiliency in the face of adversity. But let's look at some things from a contextual framework perspective. In this moment that we're in, you have a president at Oklahoma University who used the swiftness of courage and the policies and procedures around the code of conduct to simply say, we're not going to allow irrational hatred to exist on our campus. And he expelled students, and they're in the midst of doing an investigation to expel other students. Compare and contrast with the president here at Temple University. And for data purposes, when letters have gone to him from the academics from all over the United States of America and the world, when letters have been sent to him by U.S. Congressman Bob Brady, people in the city council, people in the state legislature, and everybody else, and to not respond says to the community that he's engaged in peculiar arrogance, that he just does not care. When we're looking at Dr. Tony Monteiro and the way he galvanizes a community, he brings people together with multiple things that he does, not just as a professor, not just as a mentor, not just as an advisor to students, but with the Du Bois lectures, the things that he's done in the community, bringing the community on to the campus, and the campus is part of the community. Temple University is a guest in North Central Philadelphia. Let me say that again. Temple University is a guest in North Central Philadelphia. And so you just can't dismiss Dr. Monteiro. You just can't dismiss what the students are saying. The students are saying, as a professor, he is the type of instructor that we want here at Temple University. And so I would encourage the students to not take any more classes at African American Studies here at Temple University. That's the only way, or one of the ways, that this university will recognize things from a macroeconomic standpoint. Hit them in their wallet. Hit them in their wallet. If you have been a former student of Dr. Monteiro, I would encourage you to write a letter or write letters to the president demanding that he meets with you, because you are an important stakeholder. You are a valuable part of the context here at Temple University. Don't give up, continue to agitate, but continue to look at ways that we can intersect with tactics. And I know that you all have been meeting and you've been doing a lot of things, and you're to be commended by that. But we have to look at this president, and we have to put him up to a microscope to say either he just doesn't care about black people, and specifically African American studies here at Temple University, when we're looking at the trends of everything that's going on at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, when we're looking at things that are happening in various other places. Black studies matters. We know that black lives matters, but black studies matter in an era of white supremacy where they're killing black males with their hands up with impunity. And so the amazing thing that we don't want to lose count of is that this has been an effective coalition of all humanity who has come together to say, it's not just about Dr. Monteiro. He's part of the context, but it's also about the way Temple University does business, not just in North Central Philadelphia, but in the city of Philadelphia. These halls of power, these fortresses of privilege, the fact that a president can't meet with a scholar, an activist, a person who has given himself to this catchment area and to this university, what does that say? What does that say? Every time we've heard Dr. Monteiro speak, he's not spoken out of term. He's not disrespected the university. He's not disrespected Malefe Asante and those who call for his head. He's always displayed with a professional demeanor, decorum, and disposition. And so whatever cultural bias or stereotype that this particular president may have of black men, that doesn't exist with Dr. Monteiro. Meet with him. The Board of Trustees needs to meet with him and meet with those leaders who are part of this effective united coalition and do the right thing. Let him teach the minds of the next generation. And those minds are minds that will take the instrument of African American studies and philosophy and sociology to make Philadelphia a great city. To make Philadelphia a great city. And it doesn't stop here. Continue to agitate, continue to agitate, continue to protest, maybe step up and do some sit-ins, maybe even engage in hunger strikes. Do something other than just the whole notion of just making sure that, hey, they're not going to let us in, and they're here, and they're listening to us. And the fact that we're out here just shows that we're committed a year later. So once again, reflect, reward, and recharge, because the fight is still on.
He is a man of honor, a leader of our class, and we owe him sincere gratitude. Tony Monteiro speaks for and supports the struggles of the unions, the poor, and the downtrodden in our city. Temple represents the elite and sits like a big cancer in the middle of our city, driving people from their neighborhoods, riding roughshod over its union and employees, sucking up city resources, paid for by our tax dollars. We're not contributing anything back to the people of Philadelphia. When Temple came after Brother Monteiro, a champion of the American working class and the poor, they came after all of us. This fight is about our future and ultimately about what we leave for our children. We will stand strong with Brother Monteiro. His fight is our fight, and we are prepared to struggle to engage Temple by any means necessary to secure his reinstatement. Thank you, brothers and sisters.
And Dr. Tony Monteiro, when black students, Sabrina, what is Sabrina's last name? And from PURP, and her friend was beat up by the police. And Dr. Tony Monteiro was right there on the front line, not only with her, but standing with all the students, the Palestinian students, and who was attacked, during this Hitler regime. And everybody here need to stand up and go back and start faxing, calling these people. This should not be a one-day demonstration. This should be a several-day demonstration, because you know what? These motherfuckers don't live on the moon. They live right here. They come right here. And I'm saying, how is it that they can walk by us and come into our neighborhoods and destroy them? Destroy the hopes of grandmothers. I'll be 69 in November. I remember, and I'm a great grandmother, and we were raised I was raised, my children was raised, and my great-grandchildren are still in what little bit of North Philadelphia that Temple haven't taken. I'm saying we got to get out into our neighborhoods like Dr. Monteiro did, because he not only taught it here, but he was in the neighborhoods. We need to be the example of resistance, and that's what Dr. Monteiro is. That's why they want to get rid of him. I remember, and going over Dr. Monteiro's house, talking with students and educating them about the history of, Philadelphia and what has gone on here. This is the part that they want to completely destroy. Yes, by all means, we should know about what happened in Africa and all, but we damn sure need to know the history of right here, the resistance of right here. And I'm saying, what about the history? The lives that have been lost, standing on, people standing on the front line, educating our people. These people want to destroy it as if we have no history here, that our only hope is what's happening in Africa. But these motherfuckers don't really want to tell you about what's happening in Africa. They want to tell you about how nice we dress in Africa, about our African culture, about our African statues. But do they want to really get down and talk about the fight in Africa, which they're a part of, that they uphold, push? Dr.Tony Monteiro is the one who gives you the real connection of what goes on in Africa and the connection here in Philadelphia.
Out here, you ever get to have the privilege of taking a class from Dr. Monteiro? All right, there's a few out there, right? Changed your head, didn't it? And as a I was a major African American Studies, and I learned more in the classes that I took from Dr. Monteiro than the rest of my Temple education combined. And it wasn't just from lecture, it wasn't just from the discussions he led, but it was from the connections that he would make. He would make personal connections with students, the connections he made, like Pam's talking about, with the neighborhood and the university, building bridges that were incredibly difficult to make and are harder than they thought to tear down. Because one of the things when they started making some of these changes, they didn't have to be so harsh. There was a lot of ways to do this that wasn't going to turn out like this. There was an easier way. And talking to Doc about it, I was like, there was a lot of easier steps that they could have done to just kind of keep things a little more tidy, a little more quiet. Tiny little gifts. Tiny little just acknowledgments of black communities in the city. But this kind of just stonewalling, this kind of unwillingness to listen to common sense, unwillingness to listen to reason, unwillingness to listen to the student body, unwillingness to listen to the neighborhood has caused some serious problems. And we're not here as a result of just we have demands. We're here as a result of unreasonable demands being put on the neighborhoods and unreasonable demands being put on our friend, our mentor, Dr. Monteiro. So another thing is just what we're experiencing now isn't just a problem with the administration, but it is with the administration, right? But it's a vision problem, among other things. It's a vision problem with the student body of Temple University. You all that are here, you see stuff. You see people that most people that come to this university do not see. The people who live on the edges of campus where the blue lights don't shine, those human beings have community. And to be able to understand yourself as a guest, to understand yourself as a participant in something that's much deeper, much older, much larger than yourself. When you come here, you have a responsibility. And I would just ask for each of us, when we're, the people that are walking by, the people that you're in class with, the people that you might live with, or on the block that don't get it, that maybe see opportunities to make profit, help them see too. Help them see people. Help them see the opportunities that Dr. Monteiro and others are trying to continue to build to make a high integrity learning process that transforms both people who can afford higher education and those who cannot.
And ladies and gentlemen, the reason why I'm here is look around. I want everybody to look around, because while we're here today, we're talking about a good brother that have no business going through what he's going through. And the reason I'm saying that is, you know what? I'm going to take it back to the beginning of this institution. I'm trying my best not to cuss, because believe me, I do cuss a lot, but I'm going to try my best not to cuss. But I'm going to take it back to the beginning of what the first president of this great university, Temple University, where we talked about Russell Conwell. Everybody know Russell Conwell, he had an idea that this institution is supposed to be an educational institution. And what we're finding out now, education is no longer the number one priority in this school. The number one priority is taking what they can take, grabbing what they can grab, and keeping blackness out of this institution. And the reason I'm saying keeping blackness out this institution, because when it was here as a two-block institution, there was a lot of coming together with the community. I remember when I was here in 1969, part of the Temple Upward Bound program. When you walked on this campus, you didn't only see white folks, you seen little black children walking on this campus. You seen people from all variety walking on this campus. And now, everything is about the dollar. The dollar that don't make no sense. And I'm telling you, the dollar that don't make no sense, because anytime you gentrify a neighborhood, anytime that the only reason you're here is to move people out their neighborhood, do what you want to do to make dollars, don't do anything to support the community that's here. It's about dollars that don't make sense. Now, I'm a graduate of the Temple Master's Program in Social Work. And one of the things that I can say that I learned from the great dean at that time, Dr. Leonard Curtis, we survive together when we are together. And one of the things that's happening now, the greed that's perpetrating throughout this country, the racism that's perpetrating throughout this country, when folks are forgetting that we need to be one, because believe me, ladies and gentlemen, this country will not survive if we don't be as one. And one of the things that we keep seeing it, is that white supremacy is about whiteness and nothing else matters. And I'm telling you, this Temple University needs to go back from where it started as an educational institution and not a profit-grabbing, money-hungry institution. I'm going to try not to cuss, but ladies and gentlemen, it is just hard. Anytime you see a major institution like this going up, and everything around them is going down. So I say to you, look around, because we need to be together in order to make this place work. We need to be together in order for our communities to be a part of all this growth and development that is happening here on this campus. Peace and blessings to everyone, and I'm telling you, it ain't gonna happen unless we do it together.
I just want to say a few words about the connections between the fight to defend public education in this city and the fight to get Tony Monteiro his job back. The connection is basically that both these events, the attacks on public education and the attacks on Tony Monteiro, are expressions of the systemic racism that is part of the architecture of monopoly capitalism in this country today. Schooling in Philadelphia has always been separate and unequal. Not only were students segregated, but up until the 1950s, teachers were as well. There were no African American teachers in the high schools. Philadelphia schools have always been systematically underfunded. We've always had the largest class sizes in the state at the same time we have the neediest students. But in recent years, we have this notion that we're somehow living in a post-racial society and things are getting better. Does anybody here believe that? No. And just look at our schools. Things have got significantly worse. The schools over the last 5 years, there's been a concerted movement to privatize them, and there's been a tax on the budget, on the services that we take for granted, like nursing, counseling, and paper in the schools. All those things are going down the drain. We have a system of educational apartheid in this city. If you don't believe it, just walk up to City Line Avenue and go to any elementary school on the Philadelphia side. You'll find there's no AP classes, there's not a full-time nurse, there's not a counselor, the libraries are closed. If you're lucky, they'll have toilet paper. That's how bad things are. Cross over to the other side, to Lower Marion, and you'll find arts and music and state-of-the-arts technology and advanced placement courses. And these are for the children from affluent families who need very little. The children in the Philadelphia side who suffer from the deficits created by poverty and institutional racism, they're getting less. It's not right, and we got to fight it, and we are fighting it. So, the same trends that are impacting K-12 education are affecting the universities. As several speakers noted, back in the day, you went to Temple and it had a significant number of students of color, of working class students. Not so much anymore. The university is also, its focus has shifted even more to like a business agenda that puts their profits, even though they're technically a nonprofit, it's their service to the corporate sector ahead of people's needs. And the African American community and working class communities in general are suffering as a result. As other speakers have noted, the university is gentrifying the neighborhood. The university's never been a great friend to the Temple community, and now less so than ever before. But there's another thing, another way the university fits in here, and that is the ideological role of the universities. Universities not only exist to provide capital with a trained labor force, they exist to generate the ideology that rationalizes this oppressive system. That's why it's their job to make what we know is vicious and abnormal normal. That's their role. And they can't really afford to have a guy like Tony Monteiro around. Someone who teaches students to think critically, an intellectual with connections to oppressed communities in the working class, and an intellectual who happens to be black as well. That's not a good thing as far as the rulers in Temple go. So a guy like Tony Monteiro is expendable as far as they're concerned. And it's all of a piece. We look at the students in a K-12 school out here in this community. North Philadelphia suffered more school closings than any other neighborhood in the city. Those students are suffering. We look at somebody who's working down the street in a McDonald's, as a brother said, working for a minimum wage and can't support their family, they're suffering. We look at the brothers who go out on the street and get beaten like dogs by police, they're suffering. And then we look into the university and we see what's happening to the students of the community and to an intellectual who stands up for that community in the service, and we see it's all connected to this systemic white supremacist social order that we live in. And let's be clear, as Brother Jed Dodd says, this is not something that white working people, even if many of them are confused, this is not something that white working people are the beneficiaries of. On the contrary, this system of white supremacy serves to obscure the real social relations, to pit white people against their working class allies, and we, as a white person, I say, we have to fight this as part of the struggle for class solidarity. So thank you very much. And Brother Monteiro, I had the pleasure of knowing him for almost 50 years, so I'm going to be in the fight to get his job back all along. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Musumba. I'm in chemistry department. Now, the reason I call myself Musumba is because of what Dr. Monteiro taught me. My first interaction with Dr. Monteiro, he told me, Paul, there is a guy called Kwame Nkrumah who went to University of Penn. Paul, there is a guy called Julius Nyerere who led the revolution in Africa. And Paul, there is a guy called Paul Musumba who could do something in the future. And at that point, I decided, you know what, Dr. Monteiro? To hell with the name Paul. Paul is an ideology, and Paul is a Christian value that I do not espouse to. Paul is a colonial value that I do not espouse to. These are lessons that were taught to me by Dr. Monteiro, and guess what? I'm a chemistry major. Now, as a result of a challenge that Dr. Monteiro gave to me, in 2017, I am running for Senate in Kenya. And it's not a joke, I'm gonna win it. And after running for Senate in Kenya, I do expect to work with a couple of people from the international community. Now, I do not want to work with Temple students who've been dumbed down by a stupid egalitarian society. I want to work with Temple students who've been taught principles of respect, principles of love, and principles of respect to the African community. And who teaches those tenets if not Dr. Monteiro? And just to finish it up, you know, when we talk about, I do not understand why we have to define Africa so much. There's Afrocentricity, there's Afroecology, there's Afro blase, Afro bullshit. We are African, I am African. If anyone has a question about Africa, please come ask me. Same way Dr. Monteiro humbled himself when he saw me and realized that this is a kid who has an idea, humbled himself and asked me what I thought about what I thought about Africa. And we had a conversation. These guys never have a conversation with us. These guys look down upon us. You know, sometimes I wonder, what did the African people do so wrong to this world that we have never just been given space to breathe? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. I'd like to thank all of you all for coming out here and for the support that you have given to me and to the community and to the struggle for justice. And I'll be very, very brief. A lot of people say, why are you standing up a year after you were let go? Don't you realize that they don't intend to give you your job back? You have criticized the university. You have criticized and called for the dean to be replaced. Now you're calling for Dr. Asante to step down and allow the African American Studies Department and its students and faculty to breathe and to grow. Well, for those people who say if you criticize powerful institutions, you cannot expect them to treat you with respect. I say if this is an educational institution, and if we are supposed to be about critical thinking, and if self-criticism is central to development, then I'm going to continue to criticize what is wrong at Temple. I was not hired here to be a yes man, to be a bootlicker. That's not the way I'm built. So we're going to win this fight. I'm confident of that. We said last year, this time, to President Theobald and the chairman of the Board of Trustees when we met with them, that Temple is a powerful institution, but it is not yet a great institution. And President Theobald, in what I consider to be a polite and quite gracious way, of all the things that I said that day, this was the only thing that he said he disagreed with. But he didn't understand what I meant by a great institution. A great institution is an institution that's guided by a moral sense of what is right and tries to do the right thing, especially by its neighbors who are poor, by its workers who are paid at minimum wage, wages that they cannot live on. But we're back here this year. The students are now presenting their demands to the Board of Trustees. They have 4 demands. The first demand is that in the search for the new permanent dean of the College of Liberal Arts, that the students of Temple University and the black and brown communities that surround this university be involved in the search and be consulted. We cannot have another Dean Sufis who insisted that she did not see a black community in the center of North Philadelphia. We can't have another dean who comes here and says that African American Studies doesn't need W.E.B. Du Bois at this time. If not now, when? So the community has to be involved. The students have to be involved. The second demand is that I be reinstated. An injustice was done. President Theobald knows an injustice has been done. That's right. Stand up like the president of Oklahoma University. Stand up against white supremacy. Stand up against racist injustice. And in standing up to reinstate me, President Theobald, you are also sending a message that it is intolerable to have 4% of the faculty African American at a public university in the middle of Philadelphia and of North Philadelphia. 4%. It is intolerable to have a charade that you're now calling African American Studies, where it is impermissible to mention the name W.E.B. Du Bois, the founder of Black Studies, in fact, the founder of American sociology. It's impermissible to mention the name James Arthur Baldwin, the great Jimmy Baldwin, not taught any longer. What do you mean to have a course that every senior major in the department has to take, and the only books used are the books of the chairman of the department? How can you allow that to happen? That is an injustice to every student at this university. African American Studies is not ghetto studies. That's right. It is not a ghetto discipline. That's right. African American Studies, if properly understood, is the foundation of the human and social sciences in this country. That's why W.E.B. Du Bois matters. That's why what we call the black radical tradition matters. And when you, as chairman of the Department of African American Studies, begin to produce a discourse based upon anti-communism, let me tell you what I'm talking about.
What are you talking about?
Last May, we had a big rally at Broad and Cecil B. Moore. The featured speaker was the great Cornel West, America's great public intellectual, one of the world's great public intellectuals. Dr. Asante, troubled by the fact that a scholar of that magnitude would come here to support my reinstatement, wrote on his Facebook page, Tony Monteiro, I'm no longer Dr. Monteiro, is not a scholar.
What?
Hold it, wait a minute. Is not a scholar.
No.
He's nothing but a low-level purveyor of Marxism and other anti-African ideas. He went on to say on the same Facebook post, Dr. Monteiro is nothing but a communist propagandist. Now, yes. Well, what would you say to Paul Robeson? What would you say to W.E.B. Du Bois? What would you say to Amilcar Cabral, Kwame Nkrumah? Are you unfamiliar with the fact that J. Edgar Hoover used that same language against the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King Jr. to justify COINTELPRO? That language in itself suggested to everyone who read it that my firing was a revenge act carried out by Dr. Sufis and Dr. Molefe Asante. Now, Dr. Sufis is gone, and the administration must find a way to relieve Dr. Asante of his chairmanship of the Department of African American Studies after this semester ends. That language, that behavior is intolerable. It is intolerable. That is not in the tradition of the African American people. And I would add the great African American people, the great movements for democracy are anchored in the African American people. And once it had been clear that Dr. Asante had lied to the black community when he said he had nothing to do with it. And when we met with Dr. Theobald, he said again politely, Dr. Monteiro, it was Dr. Asante that asked for your job not to be renewed. He lied to State Representative Curtis Thomas. He said, I had nothing to do with it. I didn't want to get involved in it. He lied to the students. He said, I have no problems with Tony Monteiro. He's a righteous brother. This is his language. But I couldn't help him. No, it was you who carried it out. But why? And I'll end on this. Why did Dr. Asante carry out this unjust act against me, this betrayal of the community? It is because he is committed to something ideologically, I'll be finished in 1 minute, Mom, that has very, very little to do with the African American people's traditions, either politically, ideologically, or morally. He is an outsider to the great intellectual and political traditions of the African American people. To say in the face of the critique of what he had done, that, well, I did it because now we're moving in another direction. 2 courses, 3 courses on hip hop, none on W.E.B. Du Bois, none on the political economy of North Philadelphia, none that revisits W.E.B. Du Bois's Philadelphia Negro. To change the name is to isolate African American studies not only from the broader university here, but to isolate it from the struggles of the people of Philadelphia. With that I say, we will win this battle. I have not given up. I know we can win. This coalition is wider and broader than it's ever been. We will win this. I will say to President Theobald and the President of the Board of Trustees of Temple University, either you do the right thing or you will catch hell from the people of Philadelphia. Thank you very, very much.
How y'all doing? Y'all all right? Who wants justice? Who wants justice? Who wants justice? You know, we already won. You know, the victory is already ours. I can only imagine the scene upstairs. Tons of rattling knees, tons of shaking boots, tons of quivering hands, as they see young people who have been organizing for the better part of the last year, year and a half, around multiple issues in our community, but specifically Dr. Anthony Monteiro. Young people who they wanted to wait out. They wanted to wait till May and maybe they'll graduate. Maybe they will forget. They came back in fall and came back even stronger. They said maybe they'll forget by Christmas time and the holiday break. They came back after spring break even stronger. So applaud them for their commitment, applaud them for their dedication. Our young folks have always been at the forefront of any struggle. And to understand that is to also understand the roots and the profound beauty in the teaching of one Dr. Anthony Monteiro. To not have Dr. Anthony Monteiro on Temple's campus is analogous to a turtle without a shell. It's analogous to a hawk without its wings. It's a defanged lion, because the scholarship that this man represents is the sheer armor of the black community. It is the sheer protection of the black community. It is the sheer uncompromising voice of the community itself, and dare I say Philadelphia. What Dr. Anthony Monteiro represents is somebody who I came to see 12 years ago at a town hall forum, who I came with my good friend, the now Dr. Weldon McWilliams. We came to a town hall, and we were so transfixed with a man who represented not only what was in the book, but outside the book, the campus and the community. He wasn't stuck in the ivory tower. He encouraged young folks and old to be a part of the classroom and the block. The issues were intersected. He understood that. He always pushed it. He once told me, he said, "Gabe, don't look at me as your elder." And you know, I come from a particular paradigm, and it took me a minute to assess that. But it was beautiful in what he said. What he was saying is, I'm not on a different level than you, good brother. I'm not. We work on this thing together. We're hand in hand, arm in arm, on the front line, working this thing out. Dr. Anthony Monteiro is clear in our fight against gentrification, police brutality, political prisoners, and so many other critical issues that impact this world today. And not only does he react to them, but he's always on the front end, proactive to the issue, providing necessary analysis, conviction, and a necessary line to push us all forward. He understands how to and when to and where to and why to internationalize these issues. So once again, to not have him here is a gross injustice, but the good thing about it is we've already won. I can foresee a day where he will be in the classroom, be it Anderson Hall or Gladfelter Hall, teaching once again. Can you see it? Yeah. Can you see it? Yeah. Can you see it? Yeah. I can see it. Yeah. I can see it. Providing one of his profound lectures for the community. Not only at Church of the Advocate, not only at Calvary Baptist Church, but here on this campus. A return to the essence of true scholarship and the way it was meant to be perceived, actualized, and articulated. That's already here today, but more importantly, we're going to be here tomorrow and the day after that. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.
My name is Philip Logan, and I'm a part of the graduate students from Monteiro, but I'm also a member of the Philadelphia chapter of Democratic Socialists of America. We've been a long ally of Dr.Tony Monteiro, who's a comrade and a friend to us. But I don't want to speak too long, but I just wanted to make a couple of simple points. But first, about Dr. Asante, I don't want to slander the man because I don't know him personally, but I can say one thing about, he's a race man that lost his way. And what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, I study political theory as a PhD student in the political science department, and I'm of the belief that any black man or woman, regardless of their class or gender, that contributes to the intellectual development of our people is something to be respected, and that's something to be honored. But when the university and its anti-democratic turn attacks the people who fought to put you back in the department, and you betray them and just let them go out the door, that's not being a race man. That's being a traitor. And so, as somebody that grew up in the Pentecostal black church, there's always that scripture, what does it mean for a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? And Asante lost his when he let his comrades in the department be excised from that department. Why? Because he wanted that department to consolidate his power and to teach his ideology. Well, black people don't just have one worldview, because we have many different views and there's different traditions. And I consider myself a part of the newest generation of the black radical tradition that starts with Du Bois, goes through Cyril Briggs, C.L.R. James, if you agree with that version of Marxism, and James Baldwin and Dr. Monteiro and myself. And this is the fight for democracy for our universities, because the university is using people who have no problem lining their pockets with money if it means kicking out people so they can make more money for themselves, and silence students, silence workers, silence the adjuncts who are currently fighting for their right to vote right now on campus. And we cannot tolerate people, especially a man who is anti-communist, to have that type of belief. I'm a communist myself, a black communist of the social democratic tradition. That's another story. But democracy is one of the greatest values that we've been pushing in this country, not in the way that it should be, and for a long time, because of the history of white supremacy, the genocide of the indigenous people, and the imperialism that we're still engaged in around the world. But we're a nation in becoming, and democracy can't just exist in this quote-unquote marketplace. It has to be in the polling station, our workplaces, and our education, and in our homes between, husband and wife, regardless of their gender or their sexuality. And so this is the fight for Monteiro, the fight for North Philly, and the fight for higher education is the fight for democracy. And we're going to win.
Initially, the Board of Trustees meeting was supposed to be open to the public as it was last year, but we did such a great job disrupting them then that they had to make it a private meeting because they were afraid of what our voices can do and the change that we can bring. That was a real bummer. So we spoke with the security beforehand to see if we can go into the meeting. They broke the news to us. We were a little upset, but you know what? We're gonna fight through. They said we can bring in 5 students and a community leader with us to present our demands. That's the way we phrased it, that we were going to have an opportunity to present our demands to the board. They took us up to the meeting, they shepherded us to the back of the room, and they made us stand there and wait for an opportunity to speak to the board, to have our grievances addressed. Meetings going, boring old people talking about nonsense, about how to destroy the community some more. But we stand there, we wait, we try to be civil. We try to play by their rules. And what do they do? They end the meeting without giving us a chance to address our demands. When I spoke to them afterwards, they told us nothing was promised us. But if nothing was promised us, why would you bring six of the members of the coalition for this fight into the meeting if you're going to just have us stand there in the back of the room and look like fools in front of these rich people who take our money, pocket it, and destroy this community and this university? If that's not deceitful, if that's not a lie, I don't know what is. So we demanded to have an opportunity to speak with President Theobald or any of the other Board of Trustees. And of course, they were going to follow protocol, and they were going to ask around if anyone would be willing to speak with us. But again, they made us no promises. And they made us wait until Ms. Rhonda Brown, who is Associate Vice President of the university, and she's in the Department of Multicultural Affairs, said that she would sit down with us. Oh wait, she's not going to sit down with us. One of her assistants would sit down with us, maybe, if she has an opportunity or they have an opportunity. And they continue to duck and dip. And they think that we will just take this lying down, that we're not going to pursue justice. That is just absolutely insane. If they think that we're going to fight for a whole year to have an opportunity to sit down and speak to anyone, to have our issues addressed, our grievances be brought to light, so they stop silencing us about the decimation of the North Philadelphia community, the misrepresentation of black and brown students at this community, just the complete lack of disregard for any academic in the College of Liberal Arts or anywhere. They are wrong, because we will continue to fight. We will have our issues addressed, and we will bring the fight to them, no matter how hard they try to silence us. So please, continue to monitor the situation, follow us, because we're not going to take this lying down, because I like being lied to. We try to play there, we try to be civil, as they pretend to be civil, as they continue to lie and just misrepresent the truth, and that's it. I'm not going to take this lying down, and I hope you won't, and I hope you continue to fight with us. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming out again and standing with us 1 year later in this struggle. And I just want to impart with everyone before we leave from here that this was just the beginning. That if we're truly going to win, we have to come together and find ways to win. We have to continue to work together. We have to find different ways to beat this institution. Because this institution feels that they are strong right now. The way they treated us in that Board of Trustees meeting comes off as an institution that knows that they are in a strong position, that feels that they are in a strong position. And until we make them feel that they are no longer in a strong position, that dynamic is not going to change. And the only way for us to push them, the only way for us to change the dynamic is to get better as a group. And we must all get better as a group. We must all continue to work together. We must all find new ways to beat this university. Students at this university are going to start organizing, they're going to start coming together. So this university knows that these demands are not just coming from Dr. Monteiro, that they're coming from their own students right here, who are demanding for a university that is deserving of our tuition dollars. A university where we can go and be satisfied with the education that we are receiving. So I want to thank everyone for coming out here today, and to just keep that in mind, and the struggle continues. Thank you.